Welcome to my first Call of Duty Vanguard weapon review. These videos are very casual, not a detailed stat breakdown, but more so an overview, an opinion, and some tips and tricks. Basically, I tell you a bit about the gun, my thoughts on it, and then I tell you how to build it and how to use it. And we're starting off with something I do not see anybody using, the ITRA burst rifle, or ITRA burst. In real life, this is the Breda PG, or Breda Persa gas, or gas-operated rifle. It's an Italian weapon. It was designed in 1931 and produced in 1935. It was trialed by the Italian government before being given to the Costa Rican military and special forces. Only about 400 of these things were produced. The Italian models were semi-automatic only, but the versions given to the Costa Rican government had a fully automatic firing mode with a 4-round burst limiter. This makes the Breda PG the world's first burst-firing automatic rifle. Kinda cool. In Call of Duty, however, this is far from the first 4-round burst weapon we've come across. The M8A1, the M8A7, the Pharaoh SMG, the IMR, and the Swordfish come to mind. And some of the weapons I mentioned there are pretty popular, so it's weird to see nobody using the ITRA burst or ITRA burst. I'm gonna call it the ITRA burst because, as far as I can tell, ITRA burst or ITRA burst is a completely made up name, so I might as well just call it what I want, and I'm gonna call it the ITRA burst. Now, how should you use this weapon? Now, the range that this weapon is effective at is definitely mid-range. At a distance, you either have to get kinda lucky or swap it over to semi-auto, because honestly, the burst just isn't going to be accurate enough across the map to get one burst kills, and if you have to keep firing bursts at somebody, you have to keep keeping your recoil down, you're gonna be working too hard. So I recommend if you're fighting past mid-range to mount the weapon or build it for heavy recoil control. In close range, like with every burst or marksman rifle in Call of Duty, you can get lucky, but obviously that's not where it's meant to excel. Unless you know an enemy is about to be right in front of you and you can get your gun up and aim right at their center mass, you know, it's not going to be great in a hectic engagement, essentially. You have to have some level of preparedness. I recommend using this weapon to lock down a mid-range sightline. That's where I do think this weapon excels. If you are aware of where an enemy is going to come from, you're watching a choke point at around mid-range, that is where you're going to do your best work. Now, in terms of skill level, this weapon doesn't take too much skill, but it obviously is going to take more timing and more practice than your average fully automatic assault rifle or your spammable DMR. This isn't spammable to the same degree that something like the Gewehr 34 is. It's also not as easy as something like an STG. Go into this gun with an open mind and try to gain a sense of burst confidence. Essentially, figuring out how long your burst takes to come out, how long it takes for all the shots to land, and when to fire again. Where to put your sight at a distance, where to lead, all of that. That takes a little bit more work than simply spraying a semi-auto or holding down the trigger on a full auto. But despite that slightly higher learning curve, you do get to completely delete somebody off the map with one trigger pull, even out to maybe a farther range than you think. This thing's base damage is 29, meaning unless you're getting a body multiplier of some kind, like upper torso or head, you're gonna need all 4 shots to kill. Now, depending on your recoil configuration, you're gonna wanna aim at different parts of the body. If you're aiming around center mass, you might be able to get a 1-burst kill, but I would recommend aiming more at the chest and let, the recoil bring up to the head if you have the build for that. But I would say aim for center mass and always fire a second burst, or at the very least be ready to fire a second burst. Yes, with the right recoil configuration or mounted position, you can get a 1-burst kill fairly consistently, and when you get that burst confidence, you'll kind of know when it's gonna happen and when it isn't. But in a competitive environment where you just don't really want to gamble, always fire 2 bursts. When you're firing the gun at somebody, you want to make that burst effective, but just as a general rule, if you take anything away from this video, it's always fire 8 rounds for the kill. Don't get cocky, don't try to be fancy, always pull that trigger twice. Now let's get into my likes and dislikes, and my likes were definitely that it's underrated. It works really well, and it does remind me a bit of the M8 in the way that I like to run it. That Black Ops 2 M8 lives infamously in my mind as one of the most satisfying burst weapons to ever use in a Call of Duty game. And with the right attachments, you can definitely recreate that feeling. So yeah, it's a solid, rapid burst weapon, but the issue I have is that it starts with a 20-round magazine, and when you look at the other attachments on offer, they're not much more impressive. The 8mm Klauser 32-round drum mag is the only ammunition that you can have that doesn't screw up some other aspect of the gun. The 6.5mm or the 303 British mess up your damage and ruin your ability to kill people quickly and efficiently and consistently. I think the default mag should be 32 rounds, and then you can bump that up to 40 with a different mag attachment. That would be great, but instead you can use lower damage ammunition at still only 20 rounds, or lower damage ammunition at 32 rounds, or you can have a better time to kill with 32 rounds. It's one of those attachment combination things that sort of makes up your mind for you. If you're not using the 8mm Klauser 32 round drum mag, you are doing yourself a disservice. Now, are there any weapons that do what the ITRA burst does, but better? So far, not really, in my opinion. In terms of how a burst weapon is used in Call of Duty to just dominate those sort of close to mid-range, maybe mid-long range, somewhere between long and mid, dominating those engagements and closing out those choke points and killing people in a blink of an eye, this gun does that pretty well. Like, yeah, DMRs are better at long range, but arguably this burst rifle is better for multiple opponents attacking all at once. When two people enter a room and you have an ITRA burst, you can fire a burst into one person, and while those rounds have left your gun, because remember, this game isn't hit scan, once that burst is done, it's leaving your gun, you can start to turn and look at somebody else and put another burst into them. Again, that burst confidence is essential. I would much rather have a burst rifle than a semi-automatic rifle when three people are pushing through a choke point towards an objective, so nothing really does what it does better. Although, admittedly, I have not used enough weapons for this category to really matter yet. I'm still a baby at this game, so, maybe I'll be wrong, and maybe I'll do a video talking about how the ITRA burst needs a massive buff, but currently, after using this weapon all throughout Double XP weekend, I've been enjoying the hell out of it. Like, I should be playing with a variety of weapons, right? But no, I've enjoyed using the ITRA burst all weekend. It's been fun. So no, so far there's nothing else I would rather use than the ITRA burst for what the ITRA burst is capable of doing. It actually is a pretty dominant weapon in the right hands and with the right setup. But now we get to the fun part, the loadouts and the customization. The first thing I tested was the headshot increasing barrel and the vital proficiency, and unfortunately, even though the headshot damage increasing barrel, the vital damage increasing barrel, gives you 78 vital damage, which will allow you to get a 2-shot kill to the head, it doesn't seem to work properly with the vital proficiency. You won't be dealing 78 damage to somebody's upper chest with the vital proficiency, so just don't use it at all. The headshot damage barrel decreases your base damage to 22, making it impossible to get a 4-shot kill without headshots. You do not want to rely on headshots with a burst rifle, especially a burst rifle with a long 4-shot burst. But vital proficiency on the gun when it's completely naked, meaning no other damage changes, just the vital proficiency, will allow you to get a 3-shot kill to the upper chest and shoulders. So I highly recommend the vital proficiency on the ITRA burst because you'll just get more consistent 1-burst kills, because if you're shooting somebody in the upper torso, you're likely going to land a couple rounds in that upper chest, and it's just going to guarantee that vital damage, that 43 vital damage, oh so much more often. But let's say you want something that feels like the M8A1 or M887 from Black Ops 2 and 3. Well, here's the build for you. You want a recoil booster, 140mm barrel, Carver foregrip, 8mm 32 round drum mag, lengthened ammo type, polymer grip, and Imirto custom stock. Combine all this with the vital proficiency and the kit and optic of your choosing, and you will be having some very consistent fast 1-burst kills. Here's the thing about this gun that I noticed. Every time I played with attachments that potentially hurt my recoil control, it didn't really bother me too much as long as I had the Carver foregrip. Seriously, even with the recoil booster and the faster fire rate of the 140mm barrel, it didn't matter. So I actually decided to go away from the pine tar grip, for instance, for recoil control and hipfire accuracy. No, I went with the polymer grip for flinch resistance, and then you get more accuracy and recoil control during sustained fire. Now, I don't know how this game handles the sustained fire trait with burst weapons, but when this gun is firing, it just feels so much more accurate with the polymer grip, and the added flinch resistance is so nice for winning those head-on-head gunfights with those sweaty MP40 STG users. They won't flinch you off target, and your burst makes full connection with their body, you have the vital proficiency, and most importantly, your burst is coming out fast. Now, a lot of people are saying to use the 180mm barrel, at least in the couple of class ideas I've seen online. They say use the 180mm barrel because it helps with burst fire delay. In my opinion, I would rather have the rate of fire of my burst be faster than having low burst delay. First of all, this gun doesn't have a long burst delay anyway, and second of all, I want all 4 rounds coming out of my gun as fast as possible, so when I pull the trigger, I hit somebody with 4 rounds and they can't react to it. So with the recoil booster and the 140mm barrel, we have 29 damage, 43 vital damage at 769 RPM. This feels fantastic. And if you want to play with different stocks and different grips, you absolutely can, but I do recommend keeping the Carver foregrip on with this combination. Now let's say you want to do more of a long-range build, pretty much run the exact same attachments, although I would say run the Mercury silencer, a longer range optic, fabric grip, and the Perfetto padded grip for your stock. Of course, combining it with the 140mm barrel, 32 round drum mag, lengthened ammo type, and the Carver foregrip, and the vital proficiency. And then of course, kit and optic are your choosing. I just slapped a scope on here for the image because it's a longer range burst rifle. The nice thing about this gun is compared to something like the FAMAS from Modern Warfare 2019, it's just not as fussy. Like, you don't really need lengthened ammo, you don't really need any particular stock. In fact, whatever you decide to do with this gun, I just recommend the 8mm 32 round drum mag, Carver foregrip, 140mm barrel, and the vital proficiency. Anything else is up to you. Weigh the pros and cons in your own head and do what's right for the map you're on and the playstyle you're trying to adopt. This game has a wide variety of maps and engagements, and sticking to one build all the time is a recipe for disaster. Anyway, I like the ITRA burst, and I hope my later weapon reviews are a little bit shorter, a little bit more concise. It's just that this game has so many attachments, and it's just so much more complicated than something like Cold War was or Modern Warfare. So yeah, try the ITRA burst out. Don't be put off by a weapon's first 20 levels in this game. Stick with it, stay with it, and for the love of God, give the STG a rest. This game is full of phenomenal weapons that are really fun to play with. All it requires is a bit of your time. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. Also, let me know if I got anything wrong, and I'll see you when I see you. Goodbye.